right. Welcome, everybody, to the Elevated Feminine Podcast. You're here with your hosts, Nicole
and Jen. Welcome back, everyone. And welcome to our
back.
new listeners.
Yes. And welcome. You're here to listen to real women, real conversations. Today, we're talking about communication. So Jen and I are pretty passionate about this. And in fact, I really think that it's an appropriate conversation for us, being both chatty catties. If you haven't noticed already, we like to talk. Hence why we started this podcast in the first place. But we really wanted to talk about communication today because it's a really important piece of being humans in relationship. And it's, and that relationship term is super broad, whether it's just somebody in the like the store with you that you don't really know and you're just in line with them, or it's your intimate relationships with family, friends, and partners. So Jen, communication.
Yeah, this is a really important topic. And to be honest with you, I am not 100% sure why I became so passionate about communication. I've often felt, and maybe this is more recently, where I've often felt that when I was speaking to someone, regardless, as you said, whether it's a person in the store, the supermarket, where have you, or speaking to your sibling, whomever, like I just wasn't being understood. And I kept questioning myself. Am I not communicating clearly? Am I not using the right words? Is my voice not loud enough?
Right.
All I do all day long is speak, which is what I'm doing, communicating. And they understand. So what am I doing wrong?
Yeah.
But it's something that I've become very, very sensitive about. And it's so incredibly important to me. And I haven't quite put my finger on where it even started or even why it becomes so important to me.
I can totally resonate with that. I mean, for me, my whole thing about communication, I really like connection. And so I kind of just chalk it up to, for me, being able to communicate and being able to understand where I stand with person. That's where, even straightforwardness and the, openness to be able to say, what you think. Obviously, we want to be mindful. We're not just going to blurt stuff out and just like not filter it.
Use a filter.
Right. You can still say and speak your truth with a filter of compassion and respect for the other person, whether it's, a confrontational type of conversation or it's just, whatever, you're just natural conversation, right? I think for me, communication is, because it's frustrating. Everybody wants to be understood, right?
Yeah.
And especially when you're, for me, I don't like hurting people's feelings. And if I do hurt people's feelings, I want the opportunity to make it right. You don't have to like me anymore and you can stay upset and that's the end of that's fine. I totally respect that. But I like to know that, I need to be more sensitive about this, or I need to be more open-minded about that, or, from a little bit of a selfish perspective, it helps me grow to understand that, right?
Yeah, I'm going to jump on there because the thing is that how are you ever going to improve your communication skills if the person doesn't let you know, what you said to them hurt them?
Right.
I mean, it's very possible it could be on their end, how they chose to take your communication, because that's always a possibility. But it could be something that you could improve on too, like your tone, or maybe the way, how you said it, when you chose to say it, where you were when you said it. It could be a myriad of things that could have contributed to the transmission of what you're saying that was not well received. But one thing we also have to remember, as you said, is that you might have had the best of intentions, but you can't control how it's going to be received. But at least if the person can say, hey, Nicole, when you told me that you thought that shirt didn't do me any justice, it really hurt my feelings, because I really like that shirt. And then you could have said, oh, I didn't mean it like that. I just meant you're so beautiful. And I think that shirt would look, you could, do something else with that shirt. Like maybe if you tied it here, it would look even more amazing on you, or something like that. You know what I mean? You give you an opportunity to reframe what you're saying so they didn't feel like you were telling them to look like crap in a shirt. I probably didn't do a very good job of an example there, but you get the gist of it.
For sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And you found some definitions of communication.
Yes.
And I thought were
Yes.
super great. And I really wanted to hear them again. I wanted you to share with our listeners. I think these are great.
Okay, listen up, folks. So I searched for definition of communication, and I came across this website, umn.edu. And here are three main definitions of communication. 1, verbal communication, in which you listen to a person to understand their meaning. 2, written communication, in which you read their meaning. And 3, nonverbal communication, in which you observe a person and infer meaning.
So good.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I loved about that first one? If you could just read it again, the first one.
Yes. Verbal communication, in which you listen to a person to understand their meaning.
And I love that so much, because for me, it brings up a piece that I feel is
that you're talking about.
Important. We were talking about this earlier. Communication is not just me speaking to you in a clear manner and I absorb all the responsibility of any breakdown that happens, right? It is also about actively participating as a listener. So 100%, there's no 50-50 or skewed. And I feel like sometimes when people take things the wrong way, like you kind of alluded to already this at the beginning of this session here, is sometimes if you take something the wrong way, a lot of times people just automatically assign blame and said, oh, well, you hurt my feelings. You said it wrong and you're the bad person. And I have nothing to do with how I'm feeling right now. I'm like, well, no. Wait. No, I don't want 100% responsibility, 200% responsibility for A, the breakdown, B, your emotions. Well, hang on a second.
You know, I mean, you could at any point in time, in the communication exchange, you could say, hang on a second. So what I'm hearing is you're saying this, or what I'm understanding is this is what you're saying, but nobody ever does that. They just literally sit and wait to respond. They're not taking anything in. They're just like, if you said one word that triggered them or set them off, they're holding that in mind, their response immediately. They haven't heard anything else you said that would qualify, if you will, using air quotes around qualify, everything else that you said. They just heard that word and they're waiting patiently to pounce and respond. And that's how everything breaks down.
I know. And so for me, like that really touched a chord for me when I heard that one piece was just like, because, you know, we're all human. We're all going to be insensitive and say something without thinking, because from our perspectives, you know, even if you just think about differences in religion or differences in cultures or, you know, whatever it is, you know, belief systems, sometimes you don't understand the other, and you don't know what you don't know. Or if you do know and you don't realize that it's really a sensitive topic for the person, you know, most of the time people aren't meaning to be jerks. You know, like we're not meaning to hurt each other's feelings. It just happens. So how about we just talk about that, you know?
Yeah, it's true. I mean, I don't know. I feel it's for me, as you've been talking, and I have been listening. And I've also been, in the back of my mind, been thinking about where this whole desire to be heard and to be understood has come from. And I don't know if this is just the Caribbean, but I will speak to the Caribbean. You always come up hearing that children should be seen and not heard.
It's still there, hey?
So I don't know if maybe somewhere in my DNA that's where it comes from. You know, you never get clued in on what's going on in the household because you're the child. But the thing is that I agree that the child doesn't need to know everything, of course. You know, they are a child, but it has an impact. And we don't realize how many of the things that happen when we're kids follow us as we become adults. And then sometimes when you're too truthful, you speak your mind too much, and people aren't ready for the truth, whether it's your truth or their truth or whatever truth, it kind of stops you from speaking as well, from really advocating and using your words and communicating. So it's a lot. And we've been talking about speaking to people in person. So if we're having challenges, having conversations in person where we can see the impact our words are having, and then maybe go, oh, we don't have to verbalize that, but we can mentally say, he didn't take that well, or he didn't take that well. Let me see if I can rephrase that really quickly. What if you take that visual away?
Yes, right? Texting, emails. No wonder we get things all misconstrued, right?
Right.
But I love that piece of discernment that you brought up around communication and speaking truth, how we don't necessarily always need to say what's on our mind. Sometimes that filter of, can I filter it and say something in a kind and respectful and compassionate way?
Yeah,
sometimes
exactly.
Do I really need to say that? Is it going to be useful? Is it going to be supportive or helpful?
Yes. Yes.
Is it coming from a place of love and compassion, or is it coming from a place of defensive? All these things, right?
Giving me goosebumps.
Yeah, right. And I can resonate too, because my grandparents are from Jamaica. So I grew up with Caribbean grandparents who had that mindset of children should be seen and not heard. And I love my grandma to bits. I love my grandpa to bits, but I do have recollections of that being told to me as a child, right? So
yeah.
What was the second one again? Can you read the second one?
Oh, yes. Let me see. The second one is written communication,
right?
In which you read their meaning.
Yeah. I think that it's perfect segue to what you were talking about, is like, hey, if we're in person, we can see stuff, and what if you take away the visual?
It's true.
Like, how many times have you gotten a text and you're like, I don't really know how to take that?
or one of my favorites is I would get a WhatsApp, hi, and I'm like looking at my phone, waiting for the rest, and I'm like, several hours later, how are you? I'm like, can you imagine if we had this conversation in person? You would have literally come up to me and say hi and walk off and leave me there standing up like, oh, hi.
And just randomly come back and be like, hi. It's like drive-by conversation, right?
I'm like, what is the mindset? Because my thought process is, if you do not have time to actually finish the conversation, finish whatever it is you want to say, ask whatever it is, maybe don't start just yet. I get if you get interrupted, okay, but several hours maybe shouldn't pass in between. Like, you were interrupted for several hours. I suppose that's a possibility. But if you knew that something was going to be coming up for you, maybe that might not have been the best time to start this message, but that has happened to me several times. And I just sort of like, oh, good grief, here we go.
Just leave. I'm going to do that one day now too, right? And be like,
I'm just going
to send you a message that just says hi, and just leave it at that, and not message you back after. And the next
so
message,
like maybe the next day,
right? The next message it'll be like it never even happened.
Yeah, no, that really grinds my gears when people do that. I mean, and I guess again, something just came up for me in saying this to you, is that it has a lot to do with your expectations as well. Because this is and I think it has to do with expectations and mindset. Because for me, when I send a WhatsApp, I try to be mindful when I send it. I try to think, okay, if this person's in a relationship, this is probably not a good time to send this WhatsApp, because their partner might hear the phone buzz and wonder, who's this chick message? All that stuff goes through my mind. So I say, okay, what I will do is I will send the message during normal waking hours.
Yes.
And I will send the entirety of my message asking what I want to ask, etc. Not with the expectation that the person responds to me right away, because I don't know what they're doing.
Right.
They could be having a nap. They could be filling up gas. They could be working on a project. Their phone might not even be with them because they forgot it at home. Does that even happen anymore? Do people forget their phones? I think they're like,
I do. I'm proud to say I do that. Oh yes, I'm so proud to say I do that. But continue. Another
deliberately?
Story.
You deliberately forget your phone at home? No. Oh, because I'm like, I think I would literally be lost, because I actually rely on my phone right now to tell time. But my Fitbit died and I haven't been bothered to replace it. So hey, if anyone wants to sponsor us, just saying, we love watches, Fitbit, Apple Watch, what's the other one? I'll get back to you on the other one. But yeah, so I would send my entire message and walk away from my phone. I hope that they would respond right away, because more often than not, it's something that I want an answer to pretty quickly. But I don't want to necessarily call, because I don't know where they are.
Yeah.
And I don't want to be calling them when they're driving, because I don't want to contribute to someone driving and texting and all the things.
Yeah.
So, but so when they do respond, I'm so happy that they do, and then we can have a conversation. But that's how I approach it. But everybody might not have that mindset. or those expectations when it comes to using these instant messages. And that in and of itself is a problem because it's instant messaging.
Yes. Well, and that's the funny thing, because actually one thing that I think that I do that probably grinds a lot of people's gears is I have a habit of reading a message and then forgetting to reply. Or
she does.
I do reply.
Listeners, she does.
I do. I'm bad. I'm aware of it. I'm a work in progress. Please love me anyways. I do my best. The other thing I do a lot is I type out my answer and I swear I press send. And it's not unbeknownst to me until the person messages me again to be like, hey, what happened? And I see it go to answer and I see my message just floating in the chat box. I'm like, oh, I did it again. I'm convinced that I do it so much that sometimes people think I just use that as an excuse now.
She does do it, folks. Listeners, she does do that. She's done it to me a couple of times. And to be honest with you, sometimes I'm just like, oh, she's busy. That's what I assume. And then we say, oh, I didn't reply. I'm like, no, you did it. She goes, oh my God. I'm like, oh boy.
Yeah.
Again, that's like imagine that scenario in person, Nicole.
Yeah, I know, right? Where you ask me a question and I'm like, oh, sorry, did I not answer you? When you think you say something out loud, but it's just thinking. I think the reverse usually happens more often, where you say something out loud that you thought you just thought. I don't think the reverse happens. So, that's me. If you're listening and we communicate, and I've done it too, I promise you, it is just a defect of mine. I know.
I think the messages should be able to detect when you're finished and send itself.
Right. Agreed. This has been
that would be really helpful.
This has been sitting here for a while. I think she meant to send it. Let's just send it.
Yeah, I think that would be really, really helpful. But I think we're going to take a quick break.
Sounds
and we'll
good.
come back and unpack this whole instant messaging thing again, because there's a lot that can go fundamentally wrong with communication on the instant messaging platform. We'll be right back.
All right, everybody, welcome back. We're here. You beautiful, wonderful, amazing hosts, Nicole and
Jen.
Yay! We're back.
I'm joining you.
Yes, we're back. And we're talking about communication. And we're going to continue on with this communication riff that we're doing. And we're at this point where we're talking about social chat platforms.
Yes.
Instant
messaging.
Messaging and the hazards of.
Oh gosh, yes. No, Nicole, that word hazard and instant messaging. Okay, first of all, instant.
Right.
So it implies that you want an instant response, right? Otherwise, you might send an email or you might phone call someone or what have you. So imagine a scenario where, let's use you and me. I send you a message and it's really important, but I don't know, oh my God, you're in France, you could be sleeping, you could be, doing whatever when I'm going to send this message because I don't want a necessary WhatsApp call or what have you. And I send the message and it gets delivered. Oh, 2 ticks. Fantastic. It's gone. Yes. Wait a minute. The ticks have turned blue. So she's read it. 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 and half hour, an hour. Why the heck has she not responded to my message? Oh my God, I cannot believe it. And I go off on this tangent. I've created this magnificent scenario that Nicole is ignoring me. She knows this is important to me. And how dare she ignore me? She knows. And at Nicole now, until Nicole responds, maybe later on that night or the next day. Hey, Jen. Well, I'm vexed with her. No, I don't want to hear her anymore because she took forever, blah, blah, blah. That is a problem.
We've all done it. We've all done it.
And then you'll hear, oh, but I did reply, but I just forgot to hit send.
All right.
Or something like that.
That's me. And that's what I mean. Like, I feel like or you see like the ... but nothing ever gets sent. You see that,
or the person is typing.
Yeah.
You're typing.
You're like, oh, good. And you're waiting and you're waiting and it just never comes because that's me. That's that person that types in the text box, thinks they sent the message and it ain't sent.
Yeah. But that's the real thing that happens. People start to imagine, we immediately go to the worst.
Right.
You know, we don't stop to think that, okay, she could be sleeping. Yeah. Her phone could be dead and charging. You know, there could be, well, if it's dead, I don't think it will go, but there could be many reasons why you haven't responded. You might be in a meeting, saw that it came up, and you read the notification and you saw it, but you couldn't respond to them because somebody immediately just called you, or your dog just ran after a ball, or something happened that took you away from your phone for that moment. So it's to like pause, because if you know the individual, there's a good chance that that's not their normal behavior. They usually would respond to you in a timely manner, but you just immediately go to, oh, they're ignoring me, blah, 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 think the worst. And then you get pissed. And then when they message you, or conversely, I've reached out to businesses, actual businesses inquiring about business, and they've never responded. They've read it, but they've never, ever responded.
Yeah, what's with that? Why can't we just say, no, thanks, I'm not interested, or thanks, but no thanks, period? You know, just any answer is good. Or
anything is good. It would be helpful, you know?
Yeah.
So one of the things, yeah, pardon?
Even the no is helpful.
Yeah, it could just be N-O. That's the full sentence. You know? Because one of the things that exactly. One of the things I thought about when I played out the scenario in my head was what I try to do. Because again, I'm the type of person where I don't necessarily like to shed light on problems and not offer some sense of solution, because that doesn't solve anything, right? So I always try to think, well, how can I, and I think this is something you were mentioning to me a little bit earlier before we came on air. If someone messages me and I read the message and I know I can't respond just then, I would try to send them a quick voice note or send them a message saying, I saw your message, but I can't reply right now. I'll reply later when I can. And at least they will know, oh, she's seen it, but she's busy. She'll get back to me. And that's what I try to do, because I understand how it is to be on the receiving end, waiting, or the sending end rather, waiting for the person to acknowledge it or seeing that they've acknowledged it and they haven't replied. So that's how I try to take that stress off of the person on the other end that's waiting to hear back from me.
Yeah,
so,
for sure.
Yeah.
And it's just kind of, it's nice. I mean, like in today's, I'm a little bit, you're a little bit from the older generations before all the cell phone nonsense took off as real big deals. I do miss those days where if I came home, you just couldn't get a hold of me and you just had to live with it. But, you know, let's be real, we're not there anymore, and that's okay too. And so we can adapt, right? And I think it's such a nice, just, it takes 2 seconds if you don't have the time. Voice message, voice notes. Oh my goodness, God sent. For people like myself who are so lazy and do not like texting, I have friends that text me books and then I send them like 2 sentences back and then they feel all bad and stuff because they're like, I did all this. I know, I'm sorry. I just hate texting. Can we just call? No, I'm busy. So I love voice notes. Love them.
Yes.
Amazing alternative to texting. Jen and I use voice notes. We use all the time. I use them with another friend of mine too. And we're constantly in the middle of our conversation. Can I just say how much I love voice notes?
Yep, it's true. It's true. And ever since I learned how to lock it, game changer. Although now you're sending soliloquies and monologues.
Oh, but I love that.
Learn how to lock it.
I love that too.
I think I sent you one and I said, get some tea, sit, and listen. Because I knew it was like a 5-minute or 6-minute voice note that I sent you. So,
you know what I love about that though, is that when I listen to those, because we're on pretty different time zones, is usually you're sending that during your daytime and I'm receiving it later during my daytime, is I'm actually making tea or coffee or breakfast. And it's like you're here with me while I'm listening to it.
Oh, I love that.
So, I have to say, I do love voice notes. They are definitely easier. And something has to be said for if you can't physically see someone, when you're having a conversation, being able to at least hear their voice does make a difference. It does make a difference. Like, how often do you read a message and you took it completely the wrong way? Probably all you needed to do was hear their voice or see their body language, which is our next point.
Yes. And before we jump into that, I'm going to say, when you read these messages, because remember the second definition we were working with is written communication, in which you read their meaning. You're reading the words, but you're putting your inference, your own influence on it, your own intonation. So it's something that was something like, I'll call you back later, exclamation point, might be just, I'll call you back later. And you might say, I'll call you back later. You might have added an angry tone to it, and that wasn't the intent. But as you said, if you use the voice note, then you can put all of those flavors. People like to populate their messages with emojis.
Yes.
Where they want to tell you something really terrible, but they put a smiley face and a heart emoji, but they're really just, they're really telling you off. But it's not.
But they're clapping, or they're sending you thumbs up, or a little wink with the tongue sticking out.
Yeah, but they're really like flipping you the bird.
Yeah, kidding, not kidding, but
yeah, exactly. So voice notes I think that helps to take the edge off a little bit with the communication. So you're probably better understood, or better chance of being understood, hopefully.
Yeah, there's so much it's so funny because even when I'm communicating with my dog, I like to say communicating instead of using commands or, that kind of thing. I like to think that we're communicating because she is a dog and I want her to do some dog stuff, and I don't need her to be in this rigid dog box that I think she should perfect. Yeah. So I like to think that we're communicating, and we're doing this dance, but it really is like they're almost 100% is just body language.
Yes.
And,
yes.
We live in this world right now as humans. We're pretty high. I think I should have looked it up before, but I know it's a pretty high percentage of body language being, like some of the most important form of communication, even for us as humans. I can't remember the percentage, but I know it's high.
Mm-hmm. No, it is important. And that's right. That's where you wanted to go. You wanted to talk about the nonverbal communication.
Well, and like just saying how we've inserted ourselves into this world of nonverbal, non-visual. So you can't see the person's face, body language. You can't hear their voice. It's just all these neutral words on paper or on screen. And that's so not who we are as humans.
No. And I think it's really desensitized us to in the way we communicate. Like we just can't be bothered to choose the right words or anything like that. But body language is really important, because if you're talking to me and I start to cross my arms in front of I'm blocking now, or I start fidgeting with my hair, or I start looking all around, you've lost me. You know what I mean? Yeah. None of that is happening.
Yeah. Well, and like, the energy aspect too, I feel, when like we were talking about earlier, when you say something and you have a moment where you see how the person responds or reacts sometimes to the things that you say, then it kind of makes you more self-aware if you notice that and you're aware enough to take a moment internally and say, oh, wait. What did I just hurt their feelings? Do I need to make it? And kind of take that minute to just reevaluate what it is you said or did. And maybe, like you said, either try to readjust how you phrased it or give deeper clarity, or you could just say, oh, I'm sorry, did that hurt your feelings or something? Obviously, we wouldn't say just like that, but like, are you okay? Or, if a person's like super offended, you can stop and say, sorry, did I say something?
Yeah.
I don't know what I just said. Did I say something rude? Like, please tell me, and then we can have that openness. I feel like all my sort of triggers around communication is really around like this hiding, and you don't really know who you're dealing with. And it's so unsettling and makes you feel so unsafe. You're like, why are you hiding from me? I don't need you to tell me everything, but why are you hiding so much that I can't even get a read on who you are, where I stand, what this is even all about,
Yeah. And then they would make you think, nod, and okay, I get it. And they're thinking the complete opposite. And like, if you're asking them for something specific to get their feedback, and you leave there thinking you've had this conversation, you understand each other, and they either one completely ignore and disregard what you just talked about and agreed about, or they just completely decided to diss you. Makes you think that we're good. but we're really not. You
yeah.
know, so even having the visuals sometimes. So imagine having a visual, body language, all of it, and they're giving you all the signs that let you know, oh, they're really receiving this well. They're really hearing me, and they're repeating back what I'm saying. They got this, and then take all of that away, and it's just words. I mean, we could talk about communication forever.
I know, because
you really could.
I mean, even I'm just thinking too, in some of the instances, and especially in relationship, I find that, you know, that's where you really get to see the communication style of a person, is because over time it starts to develop into, I mean, we're all nice and stuff in the beginning, but it gets to a point where, you know, we just let ourselves loose, and sometimes it breaks down. And so where do you step in, and how do you step in, and how do you navigate a completely different perspective and set of experiences? And then even worse, when you're trying to make an effort and they're trying to make an effort and it still doesn't work. It blows up. Like, how frustrating.
Gosh. Yeah. I guess, but then I would have to ask, are you trying to force that person to communicate the way you do, or are you trying to understand how they communicate,
right,
or and reach them that way? Because that would be key, you know, because it goes back again to those expectations. You know, if you realize, in order for me to, and again, I'm just going to use my example. In order for me to get Nicole to hear me, I may have to have a conversation with her, especially with something that's super, super important. I might need to have a conversation with her when over a cup of tea.
Yeah.
You know, because I know that that's something that she likes. Or let me use my sister as an example. Or maybe not, because I feel like she doesn't listen to me. But I would have to talk with her when I see that when she comes and asks me a question, then I would know that she's open to communicating, because she's not a big communicator at all, which drives me to distraction. Maybe that's why I'm so triggered by it, because she's not a big communicator at all. She only says something when she really needs to say something.
Yeah.
So, and I think that is why I mentioned that part about where somebody's going along, not saying the things that they're not communicating, the issues that they're having with you, but making you think everything is good. And then the 1 minute they will get to their breaking point and blast you out of the water for whatever. So I think those are one of the things that trigger me. But I think we need to find the way to communicate with the person that they would receive it, or the time and all that sort of stuff. I think so.
I think that's so true. And I think when we come back, let's dig a little deeper on that, and let's give a little bit more.
Yes.
Massage that idea. We'll be right back, everyone.
Welcome back, listeners. You're here with Nicole, and I'm going to let you introduce me.
Jen.
You do a much better job at singing my name than I did. And we've been talking about communication. And I just want to name it right now, and I think Nicole can echo this. Communication is my love language.
Me too. High five to that, sister.
Yep, 100%. So before we took our break, we were talking about, you know, being in relationships, whether, you know, whatever type of intimate relationship you may be or may not be in or getting into, and how the communication tends to break down. And then how do you start to get that person to hear what you're saying? So we wanted to unpack that a little bit, because we don't want to just talk about all the issues. We like to solve problems. We don't want to just point them out and highlight them. So we're going to share, well, we're going to certainly try to share a couple of ideas that we can try and maybe have tried ourselves and have been successful.
Yeah.
So Nicole, yeah.
Well, for me, one thing that I really found super helpful, because all you can control is yourself. And as somebody who is sensitive, and I do tend to get my feelings hurt easily in some instances when I'm feeling particularly vulnerable in particular. What helped me the most in communication was accepting full responsibility that I take things too personally sometimes, or I'm feeling triggered maybe what they said is actually hurtful, but it's still my responsibility to manage my emotions, and they're not responsible for how I feel and what my past, certainly not for what happened in my past that created that trigger in the first place. So for me, my kind of first step in any communication is really just taking full responsibility and ownership of my shit.
Yeah, no, I love that. Yeah, that's true. That's really powerful there. And I don't know how many people do that. I think people just slap you with their words and you're upset about that. That's your problem. I mean, if you're hurt by that, they figure they feel better because they got what they wanted to get off of their chest, but they haven't stopped to think about how, or anything like that maybe they could have, found a different way or what have you, or even why they communicated the way that they did.
Yeah.
They don't. It's true. It's true. For me,
it's not to say even like that I take full responsibility. No matter what they do, they never have to atone for it. It's really just taking the responsibility of, well, they didn't make me feel this way. I feel this way. Now it's my responsibility to attempt to express myself and my truth and my feelings in an appropriate manner. So, for example, calming down before you say, hey, that hurt my feelings, so that you're not just throwing punches back,
Yeah, I don't know how many of us are good at that though.
No,
but it's a good idea to take a minute before you respond. And I guess if you've had enough communication or conversations with the individual, you might have gotten to that stage where you understand. Sorry, one of my fur babies just came to lie down next to me. This is Miko. You can't see him, but that's okay. He's fluffy. But yeah, no, it's really interesting, this whole accountability, responsibility, et cetera, because again, we both have two completely different lived experiences colored by everything we've been through, and our ability to receive and impart information is going to be very, very varied. But I'm hoping that as you get to know a person better, you begin to learn how to get between those lines, and so you're heard and seen and felt all the things. For me, when somebody says something to me that hurt my feelings, I didn't appreciate, I have told them right there and then. I'm like, no, I don't appreciate you saying that to me. That is disrespectful. And I would tell them right there and then. And they can apologize or not, but I'm just going to let them know, if you continue this, I'm not going to engage. Yeah. And what I have also done is I would walk away from a situation and I would reflect, why did that make me feel bad?
Right.
And am I justified in feeling bad? And by that, I mean, well, where did it come from? Because they didn't necessarily say it to me to hurt me, but it did. And if it bothered me enough, I would go back and ask them about it and talk to them about it. So that's how I try to deal with communication, especially when, So there's like two ways. If you know the person well enough, and even if you don't, but they said something to you that you found was really disrespectful, I don't think it would be wrong for you to say, hold up.
No.
I really don't appreciate your saying that to me just now, because that was just not fair. Or it's not kind. Why are you saying that,
Yeah.
And then walk away, like you said, walk away and cut and think, okay, well, why did that affect me that way? Or why did I say that? Take responsibility for it. And if you want to, you can say, okay, well, this hurt my feelings because I know that wasn't your intention. I don't know. I think we need to really pause, taking that break that you said before calming down, taking that break before you respond, even before you say something.
Yes.
As you said earlier, is it helpful? Is it supportive? Is it true? Is it all those things? That's the problem. We're not taking that time.
Totally. And I love the piece that you brought up about boundary setting too, because you're right. Like sometimes, whether it's somebody known or unknown, no matter how well you do or don't know them, sometimes people just say things and it's kind of disrespectful or super insensitive or inconsiderate and things like that. Let's face it, we're all humans, right? And when somebody, or sometimes people really just are trying to make you responsible for how they feel and keep pushing and pushing and pushing. And that boundary setting is really important. Often I find that my go-to, so when I was living in Italy, I didn't speak Italian very well. And the first sort of key phrase that I learned was "non mi piace," which means I don't like it. Okay. And when I was in Italy, if people would say or do things that I didn't like, that's the only thing that would come out of my mouth is "non mi piace." Mm-hmm. And so now that's kind of become my boundary mantra for myself, is if I take a minute and I'm like, oh, hang on a minute, no mi piace. And then sometimes all you have to say is, well, that was kind of uncalled for, or why did you say that? Or, just those kinds of, but that we're so accustomed to not hurt intentionally. We can't, God forbid, we come across as somebody who's calling another person out on just being a crappy human in the moment. I've been a crappy human in the moment. You've probably been that. Right? Like it happens. Why can't we just say that and then, and count and then receive it and own that and say, sorry, maybe you have an excuse for it, not to make it better, but sorry, you're right. I'm cranky and I wasn't being mindful, or, things like that. And just starting to, it's the self-awareness piece. I feel like sometimes we're so sensitive and afraid to take responsibility for the negative pieces about us that aren't actually negative. We're just being human,
Yeah. Self-awareness is key. It really is. I mean, when you said something to someone with the intention to hurt them, you know that was the intention, I mean, I remember reaming my poor sister out once, and she was like, why is it that you were like that towards me, but not to your friends? And I'm like, oh, I didn't realize. I didn't even realize that I would speak to her however I felt like, but not to my friends. And when she called me out on it, I was like, whoa, I didn't get mad at her. I was like, I do? I was like, that was like an aha moment for me. And I stopped and I reflected on it for a while. And I was like, I went back and said, you're absolutely flipping right. I'm so sorry. And I started to unpack that, so she doesn't communicate much, but when she says something, she makes you go, oh, okay.
Yeah, it's impactful.
It's very, very impactful, So, I mean, sorry, sis. Well, actually, no, sis, you're amazing.
Sounds like super great teacher.
Yeah, she is. So, we do have to be responsible. Choose your words properly. Find a way to reach the person you're in communication with, especially if you don't think they're getting what you said. Because I think that was something you were mentioning too, about the fact that it's important to make sure. I mean, I don't know how easy it is to get someone to understand, but maybe draw something, act it out. Find a way to get the message across, so that they're receiving it, because especially if it's important and to the relationship, or to something that you want them to do for you because of your job, or whatever the situation is, finding a way to reach that person or as it's important, and being able to tell somebody how you respond too is as important. Like, how you want my attention. What do I need to do to get your attention? That goes so that you listen to me and listen to my entire 10-minute voice note.
Tell me to make a cup of tea in the beginning. For it. Well, I think those are some really great points. And I think the only thing I really kind of want to add on is then at the end of the day, it's not your responsibility if they take it or leave it. And then there we go. There's that truth bomb there, right? We love to be understood, but not everybody has to get us. Not everybody has to hear us. It's frustrating as F, for sure. Frustrating. It's irritating. It creates all this conflict and all these like tension in your body. And you're like, why won't you? For sure. But then there's a point where you're just kind of like, it's actually their choice.
Yeah, it is.
They just not there yet. Or maybe you're just not there yet. And that's actually okay too.
Yeah, that is okay. It's true. I mean, I think the people who will understand you are the ones you're going to reach. And the ones that don't, you don't. I mean, you're going to hit your head against a wall.
So, and I think it comes back to your piece about expectations, right? And expectations sometimes often almost always revolve around wanting to control the situation, right? Like, I'm going to do this because I think or want this thing to happen. And I'm going to, like manipulate the situations, and not necessarily manipulate in, the negative connotation way. Just when we're doing this dance, you say something, I say something, I'm asking you a question. I'm obviously hoping for an answer, expecting for an answer. And so, there's that piece of trying to control the situation, because at the end of the day, we all think we're deep down, we all know that we're good people. We don't always believe it.
Yeah.
We all know that we're lovable people. We don't always believe it. And that's why, the only reason why we get upset when people don't see us in a good light is because we know we are good people. And you are. Everybody is. Everybody has that potential. You're all beautiful people. So let's stop getting frustrated at each other. It's okay that people don't get you. And if they don't get you, just go work on yourself and your communication style and the way you receive things, and learn how, I know easier said than done though, myself included.
Or as you said, if they don't get you, they don't. It's okay, because there's a good chance that there's nothing wrong with how you're communicating.
Yeah.
I mean, I would like to think that our listeners think that we're good at communicating, and sometimes I'm still not understood.
Yeah, right.
So, and I don't know, maybe it's the tone of my voice, or maybe I speak too fast. I don't know, because there could be many reasons why people shut down or zone out. It could be your voice reminds them of someone that they didn't like, or, there could be a myriad of reasons, So, hey, but we're glad you're here. We're glad you love us and you like listening to us. We're so grateful for each and every one of you.
Well, and like, hurt people. And I think the same thing is true. Confused people confuse people. It's just, it is what it is.
Yes, it is what it is. But this has been a really great conversation.
Such a good conversation.
I feel like we could have multiple conversations about communication, really and truly. We should. And yeah, I really do. It's like I said, it's my love language. And I think having a willingness to communicate is really important for any type of relationship, how long or short it is, because it's really all we have.
Yeah.
It's really all we have.
I love that so much. So many good things. Jen, let me communicate to you how much I appreciate and love you.
Oh, same here, Nicole.
We appreciate and love you too. Thank you for hanging out with us and listening to us yammer on. About
communication. Love you too, Nicole. I'm really glad that we're doing this, and I'm glad that you were all joining us and enjoying this podcast. And we look forward to having yet another fun conversation.
Yes. Maybe you'll be our next guest.
Yeah, that'll be awesome. So tune in again real soon for Real Conversation with Real Women. Jen and Nicole are
the Elevated Feminine.
We need a theme song.
We do. We'll sort that out.
We're out of here, folks.
Bye.
Bye.